They told me my position was no longer essential. Those words cost them $14 million and their entire operation. I'm Liam Brennan, 61 years old. 26 years keeping nuclear materials away from people who'd love to see American cities glow in the dark. And on a Tuesday morning in March, I learned that 3 decades of expertise could be dismissed by a man who'd spent 20 minutes reading a spreadsheet. The conference room smelled like that fake lavender spray and the particular sweat of executives who know they're making a mistake but can't stop themselves. Marcus Holloway didn't look up from his tablet when I walked in, just kept scrolling through what I later learned was my own personnel file, reduced to numbers he didn't understand. "Liam," he said, finally looking up with that consultant smile he'd paid $60,000 to perfect at business school. "We've been reviewing operational expenditures. Your compensation package represents significant overhead for a non-revenue generating position." I didn't sit down. My father taught me that lesson 62 years ago in his Brooklyn machine shop. Never sit when someone's trying to diminish you. Standing keeps your dignity and your options open. "Non-revenue generating," I repeated. "That's an interesting way to describe the person who prevents your facility from becoming a national security headline." Marcus waved his hand like he was dismissing a waiter. "The board has approved a strategic pivot toward lean operational management. We're bringing in outside security consultants. More flexible, more cost-effective, 64% reduction in protective services expenditure." I thought about my daughter, Sarah, 3rd year at Georgetown Law. The tuition payments that hit my account automatically on the 1st of every month. The promise I made her mother before the cancer took her 7 years ago, that our girl would never carry the weight of financial worry while chasing her dreams. I thought about the basement levels beneath this building. The materials stored there that could level half a city if handled wrong. The protocols I'd written myself after watching smart people make stupid decisions with dangerous things. "When does this take effect?" I asked. "Immediately. The new team starts tomorrow. Very impressive credentials. Former military consultants with dynamic operational perspectives." Former military. I knew that phrase. It meant kids who'd done 4 years and thought they understood security because they'd guarded a gate in Germany. It meant people who'd never stood in a control room at 3 in the morning, watching pressure readings climb toward catastrophe, knowing that every decision in the next 90 seconds would echo through generations. I unclipped my badge. The one I'd worn for 11 years. The one that opened doors to rooms where mistakes became disasters. I placed it on Marcus's mahogany desk, right on top of his tablet, so he'd have to physically move what I'd built to continue reading about my replacement. "There's something you should understand," I said. My voice wasn't angry. I'd learned emotional control in places where panic meant death. My position isn't just employment, it's federal licensure, specific certification that took 18 months to obtain. When I leave, that authorization leaves with me. Marcus blinked. He'd clearly stopped listening after compensation package. "I'm sure the transition team can handle any paperwork requirements," he said. "That's what consultants do." "No, Marcus. What consultants do is charge you money while learning why the previous person was necessary. What happens when I walk out that door is that your facility operates without a licensed security officer for the first time since it opened, and federal regulations are very specific about what happens next." He was already looking at his next meeting. "Liam, I appreciate your dedication, but this is a business decision, not a negotiation." I nodded, adjusted my cufflinks, the ones my wife gave me for our 20th anniversary, 3 months before the diagnosis. Old brass with tiny engravings of the Manhattan skyline. She'd said they reminded her of the world I protected while she built her nursing career. "You're right," I told him. "It's not a negotiation. It's a sequence of events that started when you decided expertise was overhead." I walked out without shaking his hand. Didn't trust myself to touch him without remembering every protocol he just dismissed. The security guard at the front desk wouldn't meet my eyes. He'd heard the rumors, watched the other terminations roll through in waves over the past month, as Marcus optimized his way toward quarterly bonuses. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for 5 minutes, not gathering myself, not angry, just processing. I'd known this was coming. Marcus had been hiring consultants for 6 months, people with glossy presentations about efficiency and streamlining, People who'd never stood in a room with enough radioactive material to make a dirty bomb and explain to a senator why the backup systems needed funding. I drove home slowly, took the scenic route past the river. My phone stayed silent in my pocket, which told me everything. Marcus hadn't even reached out to ask about transition protocols, about the 3-ring binder in my desk that contained emergency contact trees, about the relationships I'd built with federal inspectors who trusted my voice when I called at midnight. Catherine was at the hospital when I got home, evening shift in the ER, where she handled actual emergencies while Marcus played corporate games. I made coffee and sat at our kitchen table, the same table where Sarah had done homework, where we'd planned her future, where Catherine and I had held hands through her final months. I pulled out my personal laptop, opened the secure email client I'd maintained separately from company systems, composed a single message: Subject Facility Security Officer Termination Notice Immediate Effect. To Nuclear Regulatory Commission Region 2 Office. To Department of Homeland Security Infrastructure Security Division. To Federal Bureau of Investigation Counter-Proliferation Task Force. Effective immediately. I am no longer serving as Licensed Facility Security Officer for Holloway Nuclear Services. This notification is submitted per 10 CFR 73.55 and all applicable federal protocols. My security authorization, facility access credentials, and federal liaison status are hereby terminated. Attached Form NRC 313 License Amendment Request. Attached Personnel Security File Transfer Documentation. Attached Final Security Status Report. I reviewed everything twice. The forms I'd helped write 11 years ago when this facility first opened. The protocols I developed after watching other facilities learn hard lessons. The specific legal language that triggered automatic federal response when a licensed security officer departed without qualified replacement. Then I hit send. The system received it at 3:45 in the afternoon. I knew exactly what happened next because I designed the response protocols myself. The NRC's automated system flagged the termination, cross-referenced against active licenses, found that Holloway Nuclear Services now operated without required security oversight, generated automatic compliance review tickets, escalated to field inspectors. None of this required anger. None of it required revenge. It simply required following the exact procedures Marcus had dismissed as paperwork. Catherine came home around midnight, found me reading in the living room, calm as a man who'd finished a long project. She knew immediately. The set of my shoulders, the way I wasn't checking my work phone every 5 minutes. They let you go, she said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. Marcus decided my position was overhead, brought in consultants to handle security. She sat down across from me, still in her scrubs, smelling of antiseptic and the particular exhaustion of a night with too many traumas. The kind of exhaustion that comes from keeping people alive when systems fail. How long before they realize? She asked. She understood systems. Understood that certain protections weren't optional. That you couldn't replace experience with enthusiasm and expect the same results. 48 hours, I said. Maybe 72 if they're lucky. The NRC doesn't send reminders. They send inspectors. And when they find unlicensed security operations at a Category 1 facility, I didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Catherine had treated radiation exposure cases during her residency. She knew what Category 1 meant. The highest risk classification, the kind of facility that appears in nightmares and security briefings. What about the people who work there? She asked. The ones who didn't make this decision? I thought about them. The technicians I'd trained, the guards I'd worked with for years, the engineers who understood their jobs but not the security architecture that protected them from federal prison. They'll find other positions, I said. The ones with real expertise always do. It's the corporate types who will struggle to explain why they eliminated the person holding their federal license. We went to bed around 1 a.m. I slept better than I had in months, not because of satisfaction, because I'd finally stopped preventing something that needed to happen. Wednesday morning brought the first tremors. I was having breakfast with an old colleague from my Navy days when my phone buzzed with a text from someone I hadn't expected to hear from. Liam, it's Jennifer from accounting. The NRC called this morning. They're asking about our security officer designation. Marcus told them you're on administrative leave, but they're asking for your license number and current status. What should we tell them? I didn't respond immediately. finished my coffee, talked with my friend about his new boat and his daughter's wedding. Then I typed back, "Tell them the truth, that I was terminated effective Tuesday, that Marcus eliminated the position without NRC notification, that your facility currently operates without licensed security oversight." Her response came 5 minutes later. "Oh, just 3 letters. OMG." By noon, the situation had escalated beyond phone calls. I learned this through the network of professionals who keep dangerous things safe. The NRC hadn't just flagged Holloway's license for review, they'd initiated emergency inspection protocols, which meant inspectors were already driving to the facility, unannounced, with authority to shut down operations immediately. Marcus called me at 2:15. I let it go to voicemail. Listened to the message while walking through the park near our house. "Liam, it's Marcus. Listen, we need to talk about the transition. There seems to be some confusion with federal regulators about our security status. I need you to clarify that you're on temporary leave, not terminated. This is just a misunderstanding we can clear up with the right paperwork." I saved the message. Not for evidence, for posterity. So I could remember the exact moment when Marcus realized that federal law didn't care about his quarterly targets. He called 3 more times that afternoon, each message more desperate. By the 4th call, he wasn't asking me to clarify. He was offering money, consulting rates, whatever I wanted to sign a document saying my departure had been properly managed. I didn't call back. Federal regulations are clear about post-employment influence. More importantly, I'd already done exactly what was required. The truth was on record. The consequences were automatic. Thursday morning, I met with a recruiter from a competitor facility. Pleasant lunch at a restaurant where half the customers wore badges and the other half were definitely recording conversations. She made an offer before dessert arrived. Same position I'd held, 20% salary increase, signing bonus, full benefits starting immediately. "We know what happened at Holloway," she said. "The whole industry knows. When you terminated properly, you demonstrated exactly why experienced security officers are worth premium compensation. I didn't take the job immediately. Wanted to see how the week played out. Wanted to understand the full scope of Marcus's education." It continued through Thursday afternoon. The NRC inspectors arrived at 9 in the morning, unannounced as required. They found a facility operating without licensed security oversight. They found consultants who didn't understand Category 1 protocols. They found emergency contact numbers that rang to voicemails of people who'd been fired. The initial report was diplomatic. Technical violations requiring immediate corrective action, but the language beneath the diplomacy was clear. Holloway Nuclear Services had violated federal security requirements. Knowingly or not, they'd operated a high-risk facility without proper authorization, and that triggered automatic consequences. By Thursday evening, clients were calling, not angry, worse, professional and final, terminating contracts, transferring materials to licensed facilities. The kind of rapid separation that happens when organizations smell legal exposure and want distance before the investigation spreads. Marcus called again at 8 in the evening. I answered this time. Curiosity mostly. Wanted to hear what desperation sounded like in his voice. "Liam, thank God. Listen, I need you to come back. Just temporarily. We can sort out the paperwork, get the license reinstated, then figure out long-term arrangements. Name your price." "Marcus," I said, "you terminated my employment. You eliminated my position. You can't just reverse that because you discovered federal law applies to you. There has to be a process. Emergency designation, something." "There is. It's called applying for a new license. Minimum 6 months for Category 1 assuming no complications, and given your current compliance status." I let the silence work. Heard him breathing, heard the panic he was trying to suppress with executive breathing exercises. "What happens now?" he finally asked. Now the NRC completes their investigation. They'll likely revoke your facility license permanently. Your clients will complete their transfers. Your employees with portable skills will find other positions. And you'll discover that certain expertise isn't overhead. It's the foundation everything else builds on." I hung up. Not angry, not satisfied, just done. Friday brought the formal notification. I received a copy because I'd filed the original termination. The NRC's letter was polite, professional, and final. Facility license revoked. Operations to cease immediately. All nuclear materials to be transferred to licensed facilities within 72 hours. Appeal rights explained, with noted success rate of approximately 3%. Marcus's company wasn't fined or suspended. It was ended. The legal structure he'd built, the investors he'd convinced, the quarterly projections he'd optimized. All of it required a license he destroyed through ignorance. I started my new position the following Monday. Better facility, smarter leadership. People who understood that security wasn't a cost to minimize but a capability to maintain. 6 months later, I saw Marcus at a conference. He was wearing a name tag from a consulting firm, trying to rebuild his career by advising other companies on operational efficiency. He saw me, looked away quickly. The recognition in his eyes wasn't anger. It was understanding. Finally, I didn't approach him. Didn't need to explain what he'd learned. Some lessons are too expensive to require explanation. That night, Catherine and I took Sarah to dinner, celebrating her acceptance to a federal clerkship, the kind of position that would launch her legal career. I watched her talk about constitutional law and judicial philosophy, and I thought about the tuition payments that had never been interrupted, the stability I'd preserved through expertise that couldn't be replaced by cheaper alternatives. "Dad," she asked over dessert, "what exactly happened at your old company? Why did they go under so fast?" "They confused the map with the territory," I told her. "Thought security was a line item instead of the ground everything else stood on. When they removed the foundation to save money, the building fell." She nodded, filing the lesson away. She'd see her own examples in the years ahead. Managers who optimized their way into disasters. Leaders who discovered too late that certain people weren't expenses. They were load-bearing walls. Here's what I know, after 30 years. The world runs on expertise that looks invisible until it disappears. The quiet person who makes sure dangerous things stay safe. The one who never makes headlines because they prevent the stories that would make them. When someone decides that person is overhead, they're not saving money. They're borrowing against catastrophe. Sometimes the system works exactly as designed, not through revenge or anger, just through the simple truth that certain protections can't be faked, certain knowledge can't be downloaded, certain experience can't be replaced by consultants with impressive resumes and empty understanding. Marcus learned that lesson at the cost of everything he'd built. I learned it years earlier, standing in rooms where mistakes meant consequences that lasted centuries. The difference between us wasn't intelligence or dedication. It was understanding that some things aren't negotiable. Some expertise isn't overhead. Some people aren't optional. And when you treat them like they are, the collapse that follows isn't personal. It's physics. Remove the keystone, and the arch falls, every single time.